Okay, I'm gonna get started. If people show up, you have the options. So let's hope I get pings if people join. I don't know if there's a setting for that. I bet there is, but I don't know. So we'll just get started. So today I wanted to go over a plant-based diet and how to master one. I think this is a big question. I get a lot. I have a lot of people who want to be plant-based and care a lot about eating fruits and vegetables and legumes and eating plants and not meat, which is awesome. If that's the thing for you, I do want to say I'm not doing this to say, oh, everyone has to be plant-based. There's my pup. So this is an option if it works for you. So I'm going to walk through this, how to master a plant-based diet from proven science, and also maybe help you navigate whether this is a good fit for you or not. Maybe you've been doing plant-based and you absolutely hate it, and now you're learning and you're like, whoa. In fact, I would say my husband and I are not we are not vegetarian or vegan, but we do eat a lot of plant-based meals. We have a lot of meals that do not include meat. We do eat a lot of eggs, but we're not like huge meat eaters. So I have to get really creative in the kitchen. We do eat dairy, however, so that is one thing that is different than some. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen and get started. Dun, dun. Here we go. So I'm going to get this going. And hopefully if I get people who ping in, I can do that. So share that with them. We're going to start from the beginning. This is how to master a plant-based diet. I'm Jo. I'm Precision Nutrition Certified, PN1 and 2. So we're just going to walk through this step by step. I'm going to start, first of all, I think a lot of us don't even know what it means to be plant-based. So I kind of wanted just to hit on what it means to be plant-based, kind of explain that. So plant-based nutrition, though some define plant-based as plants only, my definition, how I've studied, it's a little broader. Plant-based diets consist mostly of vegetables, fruits, beans, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. In other words, you consume mostly plants with small amounts of animal-based protein. You're a plant-based eater by our definition, my definition. I agree with this with Precision Nutrition. Yes, so let's go kind of break this down a little bit more. Whole food plant-based diet. This eating pattern emphasizes whole, meaning processed foods. Essentially, you're eating plant-based foods as close as possible to the way nature grew them. So you're not modifying them, if that makes sense. You're not really changing them or what they do. And then a fully plant-based diet, this is an eating pattern that emphasizes food from the plant fungi kingdom without any animal products. So this is very much like no animal products whatsoever that you eat, no milk, no dairy, no eggs, no fish, anything like that. And then we talk about the vegan diet. So this is something that I think is really good to understand. The vegan diet is a lifestyle. It is not just a nutritional thing. When people are vegan, it is very much it's in everything they do. So vegans strive to avoid actions that bring harm or suffering to animals in any way. This is very much like a moral thing. This is not as much a diet per se. This is people who feel very convicted. In addition, they don't consume animals, their eggs, or their byproducts as milk or honey. Vegans often avoid purchasing products made from animals, such as fur or leather, as well as products that have been tested on animals or created with animal experimentation. So again, it's more of a moral lifestyle type thing. So these are people who are heavily convicted about this, and it affects everything they do. So I think that's good to break this down and know, like, you're not technically vegan if you don't really care about the other things as well. Like you're like, oh, I'll eat eggs, or I'll buy animal products, or I don't really care how this stuff is manufactured or processed. So good thing to know. It's just information, basically. So within the 4 main types of plant-based eaters listed before, there's quite a bit of variation. Take whole food plant-based eaters, for example. Few people eat only whole foods. So think of this as eating style as a continuum. On one end, you have fully plant-based eaters who subsist mostly on store-bought cookies, crackers, white bread, and vegan hot dogs. These are highly processed things. On the other hand, you have people who eat lots of veggies, fruits, legumes, seeds, nuts, and grains. We'd consider someone to be a whole food plant-based diet if the majority of what they consume is both minimally processed and plant-based. Similarly, some full plant-based eaters and vegans are more strict than others. So no, there's a continuum. Everyone has the levels that they're on. It's a wide variety of people. So yeah, so this is good information to have. It's a variation, and you'll have people that are more strict, and obviously lifestyle affects this as well, your choices and what you make. So I do want to talk about some of the benefits of fully plant-based diets. Many people assume that one of the biggest benefits of only plant-based diets is they reduce the risk for disease, which it is actually shown. Science has shown that a lot of plants, hence eating fruits and vegetables and whole grains, are good for your heart. That is something we've seen periodically. I do want to let you know there's this important caveat that we share. Vegans and fully plant-based eaters score higher on the healthy eating index. This is just like a process in which to show how healthy you're eating, not only because not because they forego meat, but rather because they tend to eat more minimally processed whole food plants, such as vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, and seed. It's not the meat that makes them healthier. It's the fact they're actually eating more whole foods and plants, stuff that's minimally processed. They're getting a lot more of this in their diet, and that is actually what's benefiting them, not the lack of the meat. I think that's really important to understand, that if you are vegan, vegetarian, plant-based, it is not necessarily healthier. In many ways, it can go the opposite extreme. So in ways to explain this, in other words, many fully plant-based eaters tend to follow a whole food plant-based approach, and accordingly have a huge long-term study that inclusion of minimally processed whole foods may be key to reaping the benefits of a vegan diet. Okay, so these benefits of a vegan diet are because of these minimally processed foods. And vegetarians and vegans who consumed mostly minimally processed whole foods had a lower risk of developing heart disease. Vegetarians and vegans who consumed an abundance of fries, sweets, sugary beverages, and other highly processed foods, however, had an increased risk. So this was a study done, and just a little in-depth study of what it is, like why people are healthier as vegans and why they may not be if they are plant-based and not doing it properly. So let's keep going. Let's talk about the cons of plant-based diets. So a lot of the things in plant-based diets, the thing that makes it hard is the fact that you end up missing out on some things that meats and dairy products naturally provide. So there are vitamins and minerals or micronutrients that are essential for us living and thriving and surviving. And so when we're not eating those things, which again, that's okay. You do what's best for you. But it is good to be aware that there are some cons to that and some things we are often missing out on. So calcium is one of them. In addition to keeping our bones and teeth strong, calcium helps muscles, including your heart muscle, work properly. Because vegans omit dairy products, which supply nearly a third of our recommended calcium that we need every day, they're at a risk for calcium deficiency. So you can get enough calcium from non-dairy foods. Let's talk about what that looks like. So consume several servings of high calcium plant foods a day. Dark leafy greens are great for you. And then cut back on alcohol and soft drinks. Those things can prevent the preventative measures of you absorbing calcium properly. And exercise. Strength-bearing exercise is a great way to make sure we're building strong bones. So if you're missing out on calcium, you notice you get some blood work done and you notice that level is low, these are some things you can do. Vitamin B12 is another one. This vitamin helps our bodies to form DNA, strengthen and repair blood vessels, and protect nerves. B12 is also involved in red blood cell formation, which is really important, carrying oxygen to our bodies. And it can lead to a decrease in deficiency, can lead to decrease in red blood cells. This is a condition called pernicious anemia. So often any sorts of anemia, you're going to feel super fatigued, tired, exhausted, lack of energy, sometimes depressed, stuff like that. So if you are experiencing those symptoms, this could be why. So though a few plants contain substances that the body can convert to B12, we don't absorb and use these substances as readily as the form of B12 present in animal products. So just good to remember, we don't absorb B12 as well from plant products as we do from animal products. That's okay. But it's good to know for these reasons, a B12 supplement is the best approach. Again, if you're people over 50, people who take medications that interfere with vitamin B12 absorption, such as those who treat reflux, ulcer, and diabetes, people who are partially or fully plant-based. So if you are partially or fully plant-based, it may be good to get a B12 supplement in your diet. It's really easy on the market to find. You can find stuff like that. I'll actually suggest a supplement that I like, but I will tell you, you want to be aware of how much you're getting in, because B12 can get high as well. So even with the supplements, though, some people may show signs of deficiency. Again, fatigue, dizziness, loss of balance, reduced mental function, living in that fog. In those cases, their healthcare provider can check their B12 levels with a blood test and potentially prescribe an intramuscular injected B12, which is better absorbed than oral, including some linguinal supplements. So a lot of people have probably heard athletes getting B12 shots. That's what this is talking about. There are shots, but if you are severely deficient in B12 and a supplement, an oral supplement does not work, you can use that to help increase that. So let's continue. Let's also talk about omega-3 fats. We get these often from fish and other things. These fats help prevent heart disease. They also are involved in melting of the eye, something in brain tissue. I can't see that, even though I just did this. And nerve and brain tissue, especially in fetuses and babies. So omega-3 fats come in a few forms. EPA, DHA, you guys have probably heard of these before when talking about omega-3 supplements or anything like that. The richest sources of EPA and DHA generally come from the ocean. So this is when we think fish. Fatty varieties of seafood are particularly rich: salmon, tuna, herring, mackerel, sardines, oysters. Vegans can get smaller amounts of sea vegetables like seaweed and algae from seaweed and algae. So those are options. And then you have ALA. Plant foods rich in ALA include flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, hearts, walnuts, soy, dark leafy greens, and cruciferous vegetables. If I ever say anything wrong, don't judge me. My pronunciation is not great. But I'm just going to walk through this. This is kind of sciencey. You don't stress about it. Just know omega-3s are often lacking in our diet if we're plant-based. So our bodies must convert ALA to EPA or DHA before using it. About 90% of the ALA fat in our body is lost during conversion. So that means we actually don't consume, when we talk about this ALA, these plant-based fats, omega-3 fats, they're actually lost in our body, about 90% during the conversion of processing. In other words, if you consume 2.5 grams of ALA from your plants, your body will only convert and use about 10% of that. So even though we're eating it, we're not actually utilizing that fat. So it's good to know. So bottom line, to optimize your omega-3 intake, fully plant-based eaters should try to consume legumes, nuts, flaxseed oil, ground flaxseed, walnuts, and other ALA-rich foods daily. And if you're vegan, an algae-based DHA supplement. So that's just a good thing to know. Again, these are just things to be aware of, things that can help you make sure you're feeling awesome on a plant-based diet if that's the way you decide to go. It's a way you can thrive. Okay, let's go forward. Okay, iron. This is a big one. This is probably one people hear the most about when it comes to plant-based diets. Iron carries oxygen around the body. Low levels can lead to fatigue. I see this time and time again with athletes I work with. Iron and ferritin deficiency, super common. And let's be honest, animal products are particularly rich sources of iron called heme that our bodies easily absorb. So our body's easily absorbing that heme iron, making us feel good, giving us those iron stores. Plants like like beans, peas, lentils, contain non-heme iron that isn't as readily absorbed. To help boost iron intake and absorption, use this device. Cook with a cast iron skillet, awesome. That can actually increase the iron content of the food you eat. So grab those legumes, pop them in that cast iron. Don't drink coffee or black tea with your food. That's a really good point. I think it's really easy. Dairy also affects that. So if you are a vegetarian and still eat dairy, dairy can inhibit the iron absorption as well. And then make sure vitamin C helps us absorb iron. So consume vitamin C powerhouses. They can boost absorption when consumed with iron-rich foods. So if you're plant-based, legumes, spinach is a great source of iron, dark leafy vegetables, you know, or make a tofu stir fry here with broccoli or bean salad with tomatoes, peppers, and squeeze some lime, you know, so think of that. Add some citrus, great option. Okay, so here are just some examples of rich in non-heavy iron. Go through all these scenes. A lot of them are legumes. You also get into some grains, also dark chocolate, but potatoes, friends, potatoes are good for you. Also fortified foods are a great option too. Like, I don't think we talk about that much. There are some processed foods that are fortified with iron, can be also a great option. And then we talk about some vitamin C options to pair with that, so you're actually absorbing the iron properly. You know, obviously citrus fruit, also things like broccoli, strawberries, tomatoes, peppers, squash, watermelon, guava, kale, kiwi, potatoes. So those are some options. So what about protein? So this is one of the biggest questions I get, and one of the biggest things as a coach I'm aware of that I want to make sure my athletes are properly eating and getting adequate protein. So let's talk about this. Obviously, you see some grains here. Here are the suggested daily protein intakes. If you're getting, so this is grams per kilogram of body weight per day. So take that for a grain of salt. So this is just saying you're going to use your body weight, and that's going to help you determine. So if you're eating less than 0.8 grams per your body weight in kilograms, that's saying that's pretty low. You have adequate sedentary, shows you there. Again, you can read this and you can do the math. I'm not going to do it for you, but you see where adequate when you're active, sedentary, and then active with a healthy weight or body consumption. So that may be you're an athlete somewhere in there. And then high is healthy and looking to change body weight and composition. That's when you're going to want to increase a little bit. So that kind of breaks it down what you need for each of those categories. If you have questions, email me and I can help you break that down or help you kind of do the math there. But if you're looking for some general guidelines, here you go. This just breaks down the graph. Sedentary people should aim for a bare minimum 0.0 grams for protein per kilogram. And then this breaks all of them down. So just keep walking through that. Okay, so let's talk about amino acids though, because this is a big part of protein as well. And I think a lot of us have heard of this, but we're like, what are amino acids? So we're going to talk about amino acids in a complete protein. You've probably heard that term as well. So we're going to break that down a little bit and show you like what it's about. So amino acids and complete proteins. All proteins are made up of amino acids, or a chain of amino acids, which are sort of like a different colored Legos. So they all connect and play a role. They can be put together in different ways to serve different purposes in the body. In all, your body uses about 20 different amino acids. 7 of those amino acids are non-essential, which means we don't have to eat them because your body naturally makes them on its own. There are also 4 conditionally essential amino acids, which your body can make, but not always. So important to know that. For example, your body might have a harder time making enough of them when you're sick or having a really tough workout. So if you're an athlete, think there. The other 9 amino acids are known as essential amino acids. These are the ones that are really important to talk about. Your body can't make these and you have to get them from food. So super important to remember, we can't make this, we need these from food. So these are the ones we have to make sure we're consuming. We have to make sure we're getting in our diets. And this is where, as a plant-based eater, it's really, really important to focus on this because you're gonna have to pair some foods together to get those 9 essential amino acids. So this is important because EAAs plays key roles in building and repairing tissue, like muscle, but also in building hormones, enzymes, and neurotransmitters, all which are important to making our body function. Branched chain amino acids, BCAAs, which probably a lot of you have heard of these for like supplemental purposes. They're a subcategory of EAAs and are especially important for the role in muscle protein synthesis. So this is recovery. This is also often people take them before they work out to aid in that recovery process in building muscle. So muscle protein synthesis is the process in which your body uses to repair and build muscle after exercise. While muscle protein synthesis is much more complicated than just one amino acid, oh man, I always struggle saying it. Leucine plays an integral role in triggering that process, which makes it probably the most well-known BCAA. One thing to keep in mind, BCAAs are great, but you still need all of the essential amino acids to maximize protein synthesis from your protein sources. So this kind of breaks down what the types are. If you really want to get into that, you can look at this, you can do some research. But we need all 9 of those essential amino acids to create a complete protein. And that's super important as a plant-based eater. So you kind of see protein needs for if you're 100% plant-based diet. This again breaks it down. Again, it's grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. But let's talk about this. So when you're fully plant-based, you're going to have to combine some protein sources. So you're going to have to pair like rice and a legume. So beans and rice. So, but this is some good options. Tempeh, tofu are great options. Edamame, lentils, beans, split peas, black-eyed peas. So the lentils and and beans only count as your protein source if a more protein-rich option is not in the meal. So if you don't have something like tofu or edamame or split peas or black-eyed peas, or if you're a vegetarian, eggs, cheese, pescatarian fish, we don't count these as a protein source unless they are like the only protein source you're getting. And then you would need to pair them with the rice. Because these are actually higher carbohydrate than protein sources, if that makes sense. They're actually more of a carbohydrate than they are protein. Here's some things too when you are plant-based, things that we want to eat some of, things not as much. So textured vegetable protein, tempeh bacon, soy yogurt, unsweetened, seitan, black meat burgers, traditional veggie burgers. And then you have like uncultured cottage cheese and protein powders. So those are things, get some in, but the other sources like these, we want to eat these a lot. These are going to be your main sources of protein, super beneficial for you. Then we have carbohydrates. And this is where you pair these with like a legume. Bean, another protein source, is really good. So beans and lentils, oats, buckwheat, farro, quinoa. I don't even know how to say it. I've never eaten amaranth, wild rice, taro, corn, and whole grain breads and bagels. And then Summit breaks it down, granola, instant oats, whole grain crackers, stuff like that. So yeah, those are some good plant-based rich carbohydrates. So protein-rich carbohydrates. So they come with both protein and carbohydrates. Plant-based eaters, you're going to have to eat more of those in order to get the adequate protein you need. And then we talk about some fats: hemp seed, peanuts, pumpkin seeds, pistachios, almonds, sunflower seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, and then some like regular nut butter, so stuff that's not like all natural. You don't have to stir. Some of those soy milk, stuff like that, and then trail mix. Yeah. So just a good point. Pair those those protein sources together to get a complete protein. You want to get all 9 of those essential amino acids in your diet. If you are curious about that, do some more research, or you can reach out to me and I can show you some options to get a complete protein. So let's talk about what makes this work. Okay, so some people thrive on a plant-based diet, others struggle. And here's what makes the difference. People do best when they have genetic predisposition that suits them for this eating style. They feel fantastic. They eat more plants or less meat. They like eating minimally processed whole plant foods, such as vegetables, beans, lentils. They're willing to put the effort in to include the key nutrients or take supplements as needed to cover deficiencies. They have an open mind. Will try anything once approach to eating. No vegan option is off limits. Algae smoothie, anyone? Example. And then they have time and inclination to search out for vegan restaurants, meal delivery options, and recipes. They have time to do this. They have support from family and friends. It's super important if you want to be successful and you want to do well at this. And they have a deep why for being 100% plant-based, such as protecting and preserving the well-being of animals is priority. So that's really important. Your why behind why you're doing this is going to be really important to you sticking with it and feeling okay about it. And then they're also flexible about their plant-based identity. They're okay consuming eggs, dairy, seafood, or even meat from time to time if no other option exists. So if you have to eat, you will. And I think that's just a good thing to remember, you know. Again, everyone is different. Everyone has different preferences, has different bodies. And I think all of that stuff is important to consider if you're choosing this route. People who struggle, they feel physically terrible when they stop eating animal protein, even if they're taking steps to patch deficiencies. I, for one, am a good example. I cannot completely cut out meat. If I cut out, especially red meat, I could go without chicken and white meat, but if I cut out red meat, I tend to feel super fatigued. I cannot seem to keep my iron stores up, even if I'm on a supplement. For instance, I've been on a supplement for quite some time, and my ferritin is still below average of where it should be. So I need those iron-rich foods like red meat. Picky eaters, if you cook for picky eaters who either love meat or hate plant foods or both, it's going to be really hard. If you prefer really highly processed refined foods over whole plant foods, this is, again, going to be hard. Again, I'm talking about the why. If you lack a strong why, what's the point? Like, honestly, what's the point in doing this? Because it's going to take a lot of work. And then if you lack the time and energy to investigate new restaurants and recipes, it's going to be hard too, because again, this comes a lot of effort and it's not easy. It's super important to know that going in, that if you don't have the why, you don't have the time and energy, there are other options that you can take. And, you know, you don't have to be perfect with this as well. If it's not like an allergy or you don't have a strong moral conviction there, remember, you can be flexible. Also, so let's talk about easing in. Some people will attempt to go all in, all at once, and do it overnight. Often, like after you've watched a documentary, which some of these documentaries, friends, are not the most accurate, just know that they show one side of things, but not another. And there are people who are caring about properly taking care of animals and giving people good sources. ButcherBox is a great source for that. So if you are like, I really want quality meat, that's where I go. I know I'm getting grass-fed quality meat. But if you just are like, I cannot consume animal products anymore, I can't eat meat, know this, ease in. Like if this is a new venture for you, ease in. If you go super strict, it takes a lot. So, you know, like you have things, new skills you have to acquire, people to know, things to consider. Like, how does one make tofu taste like bacon or chicken or paneer? What brands of vegan yogurt taste best? What about plant milk? Okay, these are things you then have to discover, and some of it's straight up preferential. It's not even what someone else says. What about vegan sounding packaged foods that actually contain animal-based ingredients, such as rennet, chicken broth, gelatin? Hint, if you will want to carefully read the labels on commercially prepared breakfast cereals, soup, condiments, stuffing mixes, yogurt, candy, among other foods, if you really want to go fully plant-based. And then it's stuff you have to think about. What should they say when you invite friends over for dinner? And all the options include meat or animal products when you go over to friends' house. It's, again, something else you have to navigate. So just remember that going in. Take it small, ease your way in till you feel confident. Just like anything else, baby steps. You're gonna have to learn to cook new foods. You're gonna have to learn to navigate new restaurants, places you can eat. You're gonna find people you wanna follow that cook well and have recipes for plant-based eaters. All of that takes time. So ultimately, you want to just be ease in. You'll be more successful in the long haul if you ease in. Also, I wanted to share this quiz, and you will be getting this resource, and this should be super helpful for you if you want to be, if you think you want to test out what diet is best for you. If you want to see if a plant-based diet is really good for you, this is your option. Friends, if you have questions, I am here. I'm super excited to share this information with you. I also have a handout. If you're interested, you can just email me a handout that talks about, breaks down all of the plant-based dietary options that like eat more of, eat some, try to eat less. None of it's bad. No food is bad. It's all just, there are some foods that are a little better and some that are not as great and not as nutrient dense. So it kind of breaks down everything. So if you are interested in that, just send me an email. You can shoot me a text and I will send that to you. But thanks for following along. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any questions, hit me up. And that's it.